Hello and welcome to VGC's review roundtable for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've assembled members of my personal creed to talk about this highly controversial and surprising game. I'm joined by Aaron, David, Keza and Tom to chat about Ubisoft's latest, the make or break game for Yves Guillemot. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. I thought to start things off, we'll go round the table and tell me where you're at with the franchise generally in a couple of sentences to set up where you were coming into this, because I feel like the expectations for this were pretty difficult. Aaron, do you want to set us off there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I played, I think, every single game, but I barely completed any of the RPG ones because they're so goddamn big. And really enjoy them all. And I was really excited for this because it's a setting we've been waiting a long time for. So, yeah, there was a lot of anticipation for me personally for this game, and obviously a lot riding on it for Ubisoft as well. So I was very excited, and it surprised me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because as someone who's been kicking a ball since Assassin's Creed was being lied about in PS3 magazines,
I wrote some of those lies, or rather repeated some of those lies in our previews in Games TM magazine, RIP to a real one. I played every Assassin's Creed game up until about Odyssey. And then I fell right, because I just got sick of it, man. They were too huge. They got too big. I had children. I can't play 150 hours of Assassin's Creed a year. The last one I played seriously was Odyssey, and I played every one previous to that. And then I've dabbled a little bit in Valhalla. But this was the first one I've sat down with and properly mainlined for 4 days in a long time. So it was nice to come back to the series, actually.
Yeah. Tom, where are you at with it?
Yes, very similar. Played all of them. I think I roll credits on everything up to Origins and that RPG switch over. And I did like what came after, and I saw why they moved in that direction. But yeah, never really completed them. I think Odyssey is probably the one I got the furthest in, or Valhalla. Actually, I did play Valhalla quite a bit. And by the time we're getting to Shadows, it is that thing of, oh yeah, the feudal Japan setting, that's great. But one of my favorite games of the last half decade has been Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm like, well, then just not going to make a game that's better than that. And Yote is around the corner. So it's still that thing of like, when I got the code, I was morbidly curious as to how much I would enjoy it. But I was feeling pretty exhausted. I remember coming out of our preview and being like, oh, I enjoy what I played of that, but man, do I really not have an appetite for this right now. So yeah, I'll get into, when we get into our thoughts, we'll see how that netted out. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
David, you're going to tell me something different. You've 100%ed every one of these RPGs. You loved it.
Absolutely not. I played pretty much all of them except Mirage. Actually, I never got around to that.
Oh yeah.
But I beat all of them up to the RPG ones. Spent about 30 hours at least in about each of them. Valhalla, I played a little more than the rest, but just got burned out every time. Couldn't get to the credits. Each of the big ones. But when I played the first one way back, I was one of those unimaginative people that said, this would be cool in Japan. So this is kind of the one that I've been waiting for. So I was quite excited for it. We'll get into it.
I basically, the original Assassin's Creed and coverage thereof is part of the reason that I'm doing this job, because the way people talked about that game, it seemed like it was going to be absolutely magical. And then when I got it, I was like, yeah, this is brilliant, but I was always seeking this game that they described and when they were originally talking about it. I loved the 2 trilogy, didn't really like 3, and then it was very much hot and cold. I thought Black Flag was brilliant, but it might as well not be an Assassin's Creed game.
Black Flag is still the best pirate game.
Yeah, by far.
That exists.
God rest Skull and Bones. I thought that the I'm gonna call them the London one, the Egypt one, because the naming conventions are absolutely pointless at this point.
I had forgotten the existence of the London one.
Yeah,
I for sure covered that. I've forgotten all about it. There were too many of them.
Shout out to the Paris one though. That's a good one.
Unity.
That's a good one.
Assassin's Creed Les Mis. I thought that it really kind of lost me when I was. It surprised me because I was super into Assassin's Creed, especially in the Ezio days. And I feel like that's the way a lot of people are, because that's the era they still market. Like that's like the default Assassin's Creed era, even though it wasn't the first one. And then for the RPG ones, I really enjoyed Odyssey up until the point where you open the map and you scroll out and you scroll out and you scroll, and it's the size of actual mainland Europe. And I was like, I can't be bothered doing any of this. Even if I was still in high school and this was the only game I had, I wouldn't be bothered to do any of this stuff anymore. So yeah, it became really hot. I thought Valhalla was a load of pish, and I know I feel like people played more of it than they intended to, because it was one of the only games that was available on the Series X when those came in for review. So it was like, well, let's just play a load of Valhalla. So coming into this, I was, as someone previously said, morbidly curious. I was like, we've waited this long for Assassin's Creed Japan, and they're putting it out during the absolute death rattles of not only the series, but this company in general. Yeah. So I'm surprised to say that it is my favourite Assassin's Creed game in about 15 years by quite some distance. And I am shocked by the amount of people I've texted about this game being like, is this good? Like, am I going crazy? Is this like fun to play? So yeah, I'm having a great time with it. I think that specifically, it rips out a lot of the stuff, a lot of the admin that I was sick of, like the RPG stuff, much lighter touch. Weapons still have numbers on them, but it's much simpler. It's like green. If it's all green, just put it on. Doesn't really matter. Carry on. The map is big, but it doesn't seem infinite in the way that previous maps have been. The grindy stuff, at least up until the very end of the game, which we won't talk about in specifics, but we'll talk about in like generalities, is much reduced. And I think Naue is incredibly fun to play. The asterisk being, I never want to play Yasuke ever again because it's super, super boring. But I think his character is pretty interesting, and his side missions. If I could play his side missions as Naue, like being really quick and stealthy, that'd be great. But yeah, that's my top level thoughts. Keza, how are you feeling about Shadows?
I have played about somewhere between 15 and 20 hours of it. And I had that exact reaction where about 10 hours in, I was like, is this good?
Yeah.
Is this a good Assassin's Creed? Am I having a really good time? Have I been here for 5 straight hours? And yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for this particular historical and geographic setting.
Yeah.
I've absolutely mainlined Shogun, the series. Was it last year, whenever that came out? And you know, when that arrived, I was like, oh, I wish I could be playing this. And I can't say Assassin's Creed Shadows has quite the standard of acting and writing as Shogun, but it's still pretty damn good. And I felt very involved in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I also thought that because you play the first kind of 10 hours of the game just as Naue, and Yasuke just disappeared. Like I played him for 5 minutes in the prologue, and then he just disappeared forever.
And then when he turned up again, I did when I was like, have I missed the button to swap over to Yasuke?
I was like, I was going around that. It gives you, it maps all the quests instead of on a kind of nice journal or a list. It puts it on a kind of strange board where you have to kind of look at people and figure out which quest you're looking at. And so I was like continually like looking for a button prompt around the Yasuke area, being like, is this like a GTA 5 situation where I've just missed the button where you can zoom in?
It's like, I'm sure you're playing a lot of this game as this other guy. They've sure showed him a lot in the pre-release, and just not play as him.
I was like, if they just edited him out because of like random gamer backlash, that would be incredibly funny. But yeah, he does show up again, obviously, after like 10, 12 hours. And when he turned up, I was like, oh, because I was having such a lot of fun being a shinobi. And it reminded me a lot of extremely old school kind of shinobi assassin games that I played on the PlayStation 1 and 2 a million years ago. And I've not really played anything that felt like that. I enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, but I didn't feel like it was a samurai game, right? It wasn't like a shinobi game. So I really enjoyed it. I'm surprised at how much I've enjoyed it. It's a shame that we're all here like, this game's good, oh my god, but you know, there's a lot riding on it. So it's nice to be able to play an Ubisoft game and be like, it's good. Just straightforwardly, it's enjoyable.
I'll say that people within Ubisoft have went from being absolutely terrified to a huge sigh of relief over the past week as it started to circulate that people are like, no, it's actually good. You haven't destroyed the company here. So it's a nice turnaround. David, you echo those sentiments?
Yeah, like, you know, I'm 42 hours in now, I think. A lot of that was this past weekend. But I've been having a lot of fun. The combat's I'm really enjoying it. Running around as Naue is great. running around as Yasuke is slow and not as great. But I mean, it's good to bludgeon people with a big stick, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying that
true.
part of him, you know? And yeah, I'm quite surprised to a degree about how just like, you know, you can just like sit back and waste 3 hours. Well, not waste 3 hours, but like, you know, 3 hours have gone by and you've been having a good time. It's got some pacing issues that I still don't love. You know, some progression things like, you know, you mentioned with the weapons and stuff. That stuff's still a lot of shit. Like, I really don't get it. There's aspects to it that I'm like, Ubisoft couldn't help themselves. You know, making the game longer and not better, kind of thing. But I am still having a good time more than anything.
Yeah, on that, it feels like another go at this game with the same development lessons to just prune that last like section of RPG craft that still persists. I think would make this like a really standout like kind of series definer. But it is much more the Assassin's Creed I want than the Assassin's Creed that Ubisoft seemed to be obsessed with for a little while there. Tom, how have you been finding it?
Yeah, very much in line with everyone so far. I think that this is the best Assassin's Creed in a very long time. I think it's probably going to be in my top 3 when all is said and done, with Black Flag being my number 1. I think them delaying it was so smart, because the thing that really strikes me is how polished it feels. It feels, I think, so much better than most of the series, which is great. And I think that is the prime thing I wanted. I just wanted it to feel really good. And yeah, Naue feels so kind of almost perfectly designed in a way. I don't like, there's things like with the grappling hook and like how that works. It's like not my favorite grappling hook mechanic, but for the most part, I think that is great. I think it's quite difficult as Naue, because she can't, she has to stealth. If she gets surrounded or faces a couple of, people or faces even just one elite, like, you are in danger. You need to make sure that you are using every trick in the book to get the upper hand. And I love that about the game. And like, that's awesome. I've probably played the least out of everyone here. I just have not had the time to play as much as I would have liked. So I haven't even gotten to Yasuke yet. But in the preview I played, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to play as him, because of all the reasons you've mentioned. So I think it's a fantastic Assassin's Creed game. And I think if you're a fan of this franchise, I think that my concerns about not having an appetite for it kind of went away once I kind of sunk my teeth into it. And we'll get to it. My kind of closing remark on that thought is, well, I think it's the best Assassin's Creed game we've got in a while. I don't think there's anything in here that's going to make someone an Assassin's Creed fan if they weren't already. Maybe the slight edge on like the polish is enough, but I don't think this is the game that is going to save Ubisoft. I think that that was maybe even impossible for this game to do. And I think it makes a really valiant effort, and no shade on this team. You've made an awesome game, but it is not going to turn the tides of, It's not like Assassin's Creed is back. It's like, oh, everything's fine now. I think we've still got some problems. And I think you mentioned, Jordan, there's like just a little bit more of that RPG stuff that needs to get kind of shaved away. Bullshit like, oh, you killed this elite that you stumbled across, like this person that I didn't even know was a target. That's sick. I picked up his sword. Can't use it though until I've gotten to that level, and I just got my shitty like gray katana, and I've got this awesome thing sitting there in my inventory. I'm like, well, that's very dumb. But so there's a lot of little things like that I'm still like, yeah. But overall, very excited to get back into it and play more.
Aiden, just before we go to you, quick platform check. I was on the PlayStation 5 Professional, Keza.
Also PS5 Pro.
Tom?
Look beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's a stunner. Tom, what are you on?
Yeah, same. PS5 Pro.
David?
Base PS5.
Wow, from PSU.
Still look good.
Okay.
Wow. Still look pretty good. I was playing on performance mode. It still look good.
Yeah.
Aiden?
PS5 Pro. Yeah. I've tried it out in both though.
This is why I'm wearing this Xbox shirt for balance.
Important to maintain journalistic objectivity.
Well,
with the aid of merch.
I was about to say that lot are certainly going to be keeping an eye on this, so we need to keep it on board. We'll chat about the kind of presentational stuff in a little while. But Aaron, we chatted the other day. Very surprising how we're feeling about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think to obviously the last RPG one being Valhalla, for me, like, it was a game that almost like didn't make sense in a way. It felt too big, and from what I played in that game, and I played dozens of hours of that game, I felt like I actually didn't really know what I was doing or where I was supposed to go and stuff. And that like just kind of put me off playing the game, and eventually is what why I eventually dropped it. This game, like, I feel like they're placing a lot on discovery, which is a big thing for me, and I think it's a lot better here, but it's a lot more structured and focused in a way that, like, it always makes sense to me with what I'm supposed to be doing, whether it's like leveling up, doing some side stuff, or I want to get a new armor, I want to get a new sword or whatever, or I want to do story stuff. So that stuff has been like one of the things that I've really liked. But like Tom was saying as well, it's the polish has been like insane to me. I mean, like, whoever's doing the animations in this game, my God, I mean,
unbelievable.
When there was a little, I think I said to you, Jordan, the other day, like, there was a point where I was jumping up on a roof as Nawe, and I just went, oh no, actually I want to go down, and I held circle and back, and she like rolled off her back.
Yep.
And it was so cool, and I never get over the little flips you'll do as you jump off roofs or all these little things, and it's so smooth, and the controls of it, especially as Nawe, just feel great. In regards to climbing, and you've got your grapple hooking and stuff, and the combat is the best I've ever had it, because I mean, I remember the shit old days of Assassin's Creed combat where you would just wait to press triangle and you would like automatically kill you would automatically kill a guy, or then Assassin's Creed Valhalla where you were basically just slashing and slashing and slashing, and you were hoping the health would go down. But this, like, I feel like there is a structure, and like Tom was saying, you know, especially as Nawe, you really need to like pay attention to what you're doing. I've been playing the game on expert as well, which is like, for me, made it a lot more fun. You know, I'm a pro gamer here, mate. Yeah, exactly. That has made such a big difference to me, because it genuinely, like, you're 2 hits, maybe 3, you're dead. Yeah. And like, that is made combat much more engaging, because you're properly dodging about the place, and stealth's a bit harder. But yeah, the way that you're like naturally finding stuff feels really cool. I don't know if I do still think the map is pretty big, because when I initially zoomed out, it didn't have that Origins effect where I was like, whoa, this is enormous like that. But I'm 25 hours in now, and I've only really seen 2 regions of the 6 or 7, whatever there is. You know, so that still is really, really big. But I just love exploring the world, because, like, we'll probably get into a bit more. The presentation's amazing. The weather effects are incredible. The season changes really do mix up the vibe of the place. Mm-hmm. And this might be controversial. Like, I like Ghost of Tsushima. I think its story is way better there. But I much prefer this map to anything Tsushima was doing, which was basically an empty island by comparison. I don't think there's a lot to do on the maps. You go to a full city, and it's like, you've got one gear vendor and a guy to buy this off of, whatever. There's not really like a lot to it, but just being in the streets and looking around, I really like that stuff. And story wise, it's picked up. It's just so much better than I thought it was going to be. Not just from the actual narrative itself, but like the cinematics look great. Yeah, like really look good in this. So
very expensive looking game.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that general open world fatigue that you know when you play the first kind of 5 hours and you're like, my God, this is the most beautiful game I've ever seen in my life. Look at this mountain, look at this landscape. And then like soon you're just playing essentially icons and prompts and you've just forgotten how beautiful it looks. That happens to me with almost every single game. But with this, because of the way the seasons change every few hours, it actually kept me appreciating how good it looked. Like much more than several other kind of big games I've been playing lately. Monster Hunter Wilds, I'm not even looking at it anymore. I'm just like mainlining to whatever. But you know, that kind of sense of awe and that sense of like appreciating the detail. And because this is the thing about Assassin's Creed, always for me, it's always been about inhabiting a period of history and a place in history. I've always wished there was more to do than kill people. That's like my perennial like request of Assassin's Creed is please give me more to do than essentially assassinate people. and then the way that this has presented that world and the detail in it. Even simple stuff like stopping to pray at a shrine, or like just the little details of the way the houses look, the way the doors, everything looks incredible, and the way that the seasons change, the weather changes, and the lighting changes has actually kept me like engaged with how good it looks, if that makes sense.
The weather as well isn't just the weather in this is just so nice, and it's not just like the typical it's sunny, it's raining. Like I've had mornings in this where it's foggy, and it completely changes the whole look. So it's like there's so many more beyond like just your hallmark weather effects that really change up the look of this world, which I really, really appreciate. Like I feel like I'm still discovering new looks to the world, and that's 20-something hours in. And maybe that's just visual eye candy for some people, but it like you're saying, you are still appreciating it. You do stop and you see the light shining through a tree, and you're like, oh, that's really, really nice. Like I'm going to slow down and do like a little cinematic walk just for this little bit. But no, it's good.
It's the first time this 800 quid pile of shite has felt worth it to me. It's a big markup for the Pro, I think. Literally like filming the comparison right now, and the changes to the lighting in particular. I mean, the fact that the performance mode on Pro is essentially quality mode on base, but double the frame rate. It really is like, that's the kind of changes that I think people have been looking for with the Pro, and it hasn't been happening so far, and this feels like a big one. Just on the weather there, I specifically wanted to talk about how they finally made, like they always talk about in Assassin's Creed games, oh, the darkness is your best friend, you've got to sleep through the shadows. They've actually gamified that finally and made making places pitch black important. Like, so there's a lot of very obviously placed light sources during night missions. It'll be big torches or little kind of tea lights and stuff, and it makes a big deal about when you extinguish them, you engulf the place in a darkness like the sun has exploded. Like it's so over the top, but it makes you feel like Batman, because I was going around like, turning every single light off with like my kunai and stuff like that, and then there's a specific assassination where it's one of the people that one of the main people you're going after, and after a cutscene you're face to face with them essentially, and they're in this very small contained area with all their guards, and I went around, killed every single one of their guards, and I was there was a kind of Torii Gate shaped thing above them, and I just stood there on the perch, and I was like, I feel like I should be swinging upside down with my cape, pulling them up, and then like taking them to Commissioner Gordon. Like you become such a powerful force, and I think that it helps that it looks so good, so that especially on like an HDR monitor, so the darks are really, really dark and the brights are really, really bright. But I think all that stuff works so well together in a way that Assassin's Creed games and Ubisoft games in general have always been really technically impressive. Like if you go back to the French one now, those crowds are still insane, but no one really gave it all that much, unless you're like Digital Foundry and you're like counting people in the crowd. But I think this one, people are going to be like, this is a huge kind of step up. But that's enough bloody unqualified effusive praise. David, break it down for us. Why is this actually the worst Assassin's Creed game? Because of how grindy it gets towards the end, without giving spoilers away.
I mean, so my thing with it, I really don't like the knowledge point progression system. Basically, like whatever you do to just, if you want to mainline it, if you want to do a bunch of side quests, you're going to be blocked progression wise at some point, because you have to go and do all these other random things. And some of them are really cool. Like they have I think it's the Kujikiri missions they're called, or whatever, where it's like you do these little like memory missions with Noway, and those are great. Yep. I love those. If getting the knowledge points was just doing like 12 of those and that was it, that's all you had to do, great. Yeah. But it's not. It's also that. And then, yeah, it's nice to go and stop at a shrine and appreciate the beauty of it all. But why is that also just as valued as doing what's actually a really cool like piece of narrative that you do in this other mission over here? You know, like now I got to run around the map and do all these things so I can complete the skill tree or get the next level of like, you know, abilities and stuff, right? Like that just kind of doesn't.
It's the number of them for me that you need to do that really put me off. Like the first couple of times I was like, okay, you also get them for, if you're in a shrine, they have like lost pages which come up if you press L2 and you're like looking for a little blue ball, and that's like not gameplay at that point. Like that's nothing. No,
you're playing the UI, aren't you? You're not like, I really feel like Assassin's Creed's had this problem since 3, where there's just slightly too many systems in it.
Yeah.
And it's like they have done well, I think, as has been pointed out, paring back some of that in this. It felt more focused. But like, there are just a lot of like systems, there's a lot of menus, there's a lot of skill trees, there's a lot of this going on. And like, I'm trying to immerse myself here. And every time I pick it up, I feel like, to quote Charlie Brooker, I feel like the dog at the controls of a helicopter. Even if I've only been like a day since I left, I pick it up and I'm like, what are all the menus again? And I feel like the hideout system, where you're like, basically you build up a homestead.
You've not got much on. You've got plenty of time to go and build this entire palatial estate. There's nothing going on.
But firstly, it's supposed to be like a shinobi hideout, and it's a gigantic swathe of the countryside, not even particularly hidden. And every random people that you help, or they will come and live there, and they'll come and do stuff for you there. But every time I went back to the homestead, firstly it tries to get you to build it and kind of place all your buildings and make them pretty and connect them with corridors. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Yeah. And then also there's just so many icons in it. There's so many different systems that you're upgrading your weapons. I didn't realize you could upgrade your weapons for a really embarrassingly long time in this game. Because I had that problem where I kept picking up some cool katana off someone I defeated and then not being able to use it. And then there are various other kind of just too many systems. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of like mechanical stuff that doesn't really need to be there. And then there's this whole layer of like Animus stuff on top of it, which I'm just going to say, I've felt this way for decades. Like, get rid of the...
Put it in the bin, man.
Get rid of it. It's so dumb. And you have this kind of, a few hours in, it starts asking you to hunt for Animus anomalies. And I'm like, no, I'm enjoying being in feudal Japan. Just leave me alone. Leave me be in feudal Japan.
The Animus died when Desmond died for me. That was like the last time
exactly. It was a really good opportunity to get rid of it.
I think at the time I was really interested in what they were doing with that and like where it was going, and like it was novel, right? It was not, the more we uncovered about what was going on with like the old people or whatever they're called, the old people, whatever the precursors, I don't give a fuck. But I definitely don't. Oh, sorry.
No, you're quite
wrong. That's how much I hate the Animus. I was willing to break that one rule. But yeah, and they obviously have been futzing with that. They started doing the for a couple, it was the first person things, and you were an Abstergo employee. Then they switched and they were like, well, let's just do Desmond 2.0 with Layla, and that was like we're over this. And when they started, it's funny when they booted it up and it was like, what's going on? Like, what is there's quite a mystery as to who you are and like how you're plugged in and what's going on. But I'm with Keza, where it's like, just get that shit out the way. Like, it's not fun. I don't really like, nothing you can really do with this is going to make me think differently, I think. And I think they just need to, I agree. I think they should just get rid of it. But at the same time, it is what makes Assassin's Creed. And especially now with the Animus Hub, is this infinite? I haven't really messed with it.
That was also my question.
Seem to actually
it is infinite. That's what it is. Yeah. So basically, like when you load it up now, it comes. Sorry, people haven't played it at home. When you load it up, it comes up with different time periods, and you kind of scroll through. This confused me at first. I was like, "What's happening?" And it goes through. From I think it's Odyssey onwards, but you scroll through the time periods and the characters, and then when you hit one, it will take you to the store to buy the relevant game. Yeah. So I was like, oh, are we just getting them all now? But no, you still have to buy the game.
This is amazing.
Because plenty of people, they really have the time to not just play Shadows, but every other game at the same time and have them all installed in your PlayStation at the same time.
I wanted to boot one because it said like boot up the game, and I was like, did it install this? So, like, I didn't know it was going to take me to the page. But like, I spent like a couple of minutes like, do I go down this path? I was like, I don't have time to play the actual game, let alone like revisit Odyssey through this stupid menu.
I tried it out, and it just takes you to the PlayStation Store to press the button. I mean, I happened to have one of them installed, and then it did boot up, and that was quite cool. But then the other ones, it just takes you to the store. So it's now just a confusing front end for the whole thing. And like, well, what you were saying earlier, Tom, about like bringing new people into Assassin's Creed, like, is this the game that can do that? I actually think the Animus is getting in the way of that.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I know a lot of people who kind of dabble in games who would really, really enjoy this game.
Yeah.
But the Animus stuff, they'd be like, what's happening?
Yeah,
And
and it's
that would
up
just-
front, and I think the problem with it as well is it's up front. Like the first thing you do when you boot up this game is it introduces the concept of you experience the memories, and then I'm confused because I'm like, wait, am I the same person? Like, does this mean Naoe and Yasuke shack up? But like, what? You know, like the implications.
Are they
of,
both
like,
my
what this
ancestors?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what is going on here? And I think that I always thought the Animus stuff was more effective when it was almost like a reveal of like you're playing the game and then this isn't actually happening. Like you're in a thing, and it was much better back in the day. But yeah, now it's like it's a mess, and I do think that it just gets in the way of. I think for anyone to experience this game.
I do think it's just a bit of a byproduct of them expanding the games. Like it made more sense when they were more linear and like focused, and it made, you know, you could tie the anime stuff equally into the you know, the old history stuff. But now when the whole thing is like you're going to be playing this game for 100 hours, here's 2 hours of anime stuff. And to be clear as well, something I think we should clear up is there aren't like modern day things so far that I've played.
Not playable.
Not playable modern. There is like some form of narrative. But the whole anime stuff is weird because there's like a kind of mini battle pass, but you earn it by doing these side missions in the game, and there is a premium currency to buy cosmetics, which you can also earn in the game as well. So
this is what I mean. Too many systems.
Yeah,
like, all of this is stuff that anybody who isn't like really Assassin's Creed pilled is going to be. I mean, even I, who have been playing Assassin's Creed games for nearly 20 years, I'm still like, what again?
Yeah.
What's happening?
It's
like
they should have just got.
Yeah.
They should have got rid of the whole conceit. Should now simply be the Animus is the game, right?
Yeah.
The game is the way for you to experience historical moments and for you to experience like your ancestors' memories. Like, that's cool. Leave it there. We don't need any more than that.
And I think they can. It boggles my mind that they haven't done that, because like I get the fact that they kind of need to use the Animus because so much of the design of the game is like this technological. You know, it doesn't really make sense for, you know, walking around. There's a glyph and I'm highlighting it, and it's like, oh, you added this to your codex, and you know they'd probably have to design it in a way that was like more, because the world is the world has so much attention to detail that something like that would stand out if we didn't have the concept that I'm living in a computer and it's a simulation. But yeah, they could just present it as like you're plugged into the Animus, and they tried to do that in the past. Like I think that's what the first person for Black Flag had it, and like those like latter half of the first batch of games had that, and I think they were trying to do that, but then it was like, but we're also gonna have like Elon Musk CEO villain, and like you're trying to figure out all this, and yeah, it's bizarre. Like I do think they can strip it down even further, but honestly, at this point, like just get rid of it. Like it's a waste of time.
It serving as infinity doesn't work because I have the entitlement to basically every Assassin's Creed game available on PlayStation, and not all of them are there. So it's like, well, is this going to get to the point where from Altair up till now are all going to be filled in, like when that Assassin's Creed 1 remake comes out and stuff like that? I assume that's how it's going to go, but yeah, I'm with Keza. I was like, as soon as the Animus stuff came up, I was like, are they still doing this pissing Animus shit? Like, I could not believe my eyes. And then, thankfully, it really leaves you alone and is almost ashamed of it, because the Animus missions are like off screen on your mission list. It's like all the real Japanese shit is in here, but see if you want to go and collect praxis points or whatever the plan is here to go and get like armor that looks completely shit in the context of the game because it doesn't look like it's actually from this place. Like,
honestly, like it's one of the greatest framing devices that video games have ever come up with, the Animus. Yeah. But everything they've done with it has undermined what a cool idea it is.
Since I think like it's very at the end of Assassin's Creed 1 where you use the Eagle Vision and you see all the scrolling on the wall, that should have been the start to the greatest story ever told, and
they properly Da Vinci coded it in the end, didn't they? There was nothing in the end. There was nothing there.
It's almost like they killed. Sorry, it's almost like when they killed Desmond, they just didn't know what to do beyond that. They're like, oh shit, everyone actually kind of enjoyed this, but now we don't know how to continue, and so it's just been a limiting factor ever since.
Was I the only one who was like relieved when Desmond died?
Yeah, he wasn't a compelling character or anything.
No, he was one of the most annoying, like generic white guys of all video, and that's a crowded field.
Yeah,
Desmond was the most annoying. Yeah, like the most annoying, like mid to late 2000s white guy game protagonist.
The thing that annoyed me was that the ending to Desmond's story should have been that he was the protagonist of Watch Dogs. Like, that's how it should have went. That that was the continuation into the modern day, and then
that actually works. That would work.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden
Pierce.
Aiden Pierce's iconic hat. Like he should have at the end of the game been like
Desmond a cap.
Yeah.
And
at the end of Watch
Aiden
Dogs,
Pierce.
at the end of Watch Dogs, my name isn't Aiden Pierce. Actually, I'm in witness protection. My real name is Desmond Miles, and then it just hard cuts to black.
Oh.
That could have been the greatest moment in storytelling history. But Eve is a coward. Your new game's quite good. You're a storytelling coward. Can
I ask a question of the panel?
Okay,
Which
question from the Guardian. Here we go.
So I'm not terrible at games. I really just feel like I need to say up front, I'm not terrible at games. However, specifically with Assassin's Creed, I seem to have this amazing ability to make it look like total shit. Like I try and Parkour. My partner was watching me play this last night, and I'm trying to do one of the castle infiltrations.
Yeah.
Every time I press the button to Parkour, I go somehow in like I dived off the edge of Osaka Castle into the moat and couldn't get back up and had to reload the game. Yeah. And like every time I use the Parkour. Now it just chooses like some weird ass. It always looks terrible. You know, I'll be there like, okay, I'm hiding up here. I'm gonna assassinate this dude, and I'll be dropping down to this ledge, and then instead she'll just leap into the path of the guy I'm trying to assassinate and get into a fist fight and die. And every time I ride around on my horse, I somehow get stuck in a mountain. Like I really seem to have an amazing ability to make this game look terrible, and I honestly think it's my fault. But like, especially when I'm doing infiltrations, I will see after I've killed everyone, I will see the path I clearly should have taken. I will see all the places I could have hidden. But when I'm doing it, it always looks like a mess. Has anyone made it look elegant and stealthy and like shinobi-like?
The horse riding, I'm with you. Like for some reason, the horse is always like trying to go to the like. Oh, you want me to go get stuck in these bushes for like 10 minutes and have to hop
Clearly
off of me,
related
run
to
away,
Roach.
call me over, and like get back on the path? Like I am being as deliberate as possible in controlling this horse. I'm trying to gallop when it's appropriate and like slow down, because if you don't do that, it just like it's like boom, like I'm gonna shoot off over here. And I do agree with you on the lack of finesse, and I think this is something that Assassin's Creed has always kind of had, is like it gives you this unprecedented like level of control, but it just shows the limitations of a system like that. And I think that to what I was saying earlier, I think they've polished it, the flips and stuff, like it does feel like very fluid, but you do have to be very deliberate with the movement. I brought up the grappling hook before. The way the grappling hook works annoys the piss out of me, because it's just, hey, there's a marker at the top of the screen. You can use the grappling hook, but there's no like directional thing. Of
Where will you go? Yeah. Will you be on top of a tree? Exactly. Will you be on a roof? Will you just be literally in the path of whoever you're trying to avoid right now? You don't know.
I'm sneaking up, and I'm like, oh, I can grappling hook over there. And then she just grapples above her, just like starts climbing up. Yeah. So there's still a lot of that. But I do think that with how this game, you know, I messaged someone who was also playing it for work, and I was like, you know, previous Assassin's Creed games, especially like games like Valhalla, you can cheese, right? You can just run in and bash people to hell and not really give a shit about how any of that is done. And this one, you really have to, at least with Nawe, you know, do these infiltrations. So I felt that like I was being a little bit more, I really wanted it to look good. Like I really hate when it's like, I've mucked this up. Like, I've done this. I've broken the stealth accidentally. So I've tried really hard to not be where you are, Keza, but it does take like a deliberate, like as deliberate. And even then, the precision and like, you'll still do some wonky stuff. Even with the grappling hook, I'm still doing the thing of like, I should be able to jump up here, but it's not allowing me, or I'll jump and I'll like face plant into a wall, and you know, you'll kind of clumsily land your way into something that gets you to kill the person. But so I do think if you want to have some of that finesse. It's you got to work at it. You got to really be deliberate with your controls.
Like I'm interested because obviously Aaron was playing it on expert, which I'm like I can't even like I'm fudging this game on normal difficulty so badly. I'm like how like the finesse required to get through any of these like situations on expert must be much higher.
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, like the stealth is a lot harder because they said something like they can now spot you on roofs. So do you not get spotted if you're on roofs at all?
No, you do if if there's a line of sight. It's very slow, but if the line
You've got to be in the shadows.
Yeah. So
like if it's nighttime, you're fine on the roofs, but if you're under a light, like the light is a lot more important than I thought it was in stealth. You know, once I figured out that actually it wasn't so much whether there was a line. Well, obviously line of sight's important, but what's more important is how dark it is. Then I started to be a bit more successful. Yeah, in my completely hapless stealth attempts.
the being on expert, like you do have, because like you can stand up on a roof and like you'll immediately like there's going to be somebody that's seeing you and you see the little bar going, and it's really easy to like lose stealth because of that. But because of that though, like I have been much more like in tune with the mechanics of movement and stuff, and like I feel like there are times in this I always think back to like not really a compatible game so much, but like you know how you would get those skill clip compilations for something like Dishonored 2 and it's people doing all like this stuff and they're really cool. But like I feel like there's the potential here with that, because I've had some clips or like some moments when I'm playing this game where it's like, you know, I'm crawling along a roof which is on like the shadow slanted side of it so they can't see me, and then, you know, I'll take down this thing and then I'll flip off the roof into the bushes, take this guy out, and it's like really, really cool in the way that you can go from like prone to or like standing to prone really quickly. I love a wee slide mechanic. You know, you're running, you hit that. I love that kind of stuff. And I get what you're saying about the grapple, but I do think like, particularly with like climbing buildings, it's just so quick and easy like that. And I love the way you can like run up a wall and then kind of flip off the wall and then flick your grappling hook up. I love all of that kind of stuff. And it then as well, obviously kind of tying into the combat as well, and like how slick that looks with like your deflections and your dodges, and then your abilities are really, I find that it's the smoothest and like best Assassin's Creed, because the way what I think of with Assassin's Creed a lot of the time is something like Black Flag, where like you're constantly running up like a tree and it'll do that like
run up and then just fall
down, you know, that drove me mad, and there were so many of those in that way. And this to me feels like the progression of the animations and the movement in the same way that Unity was when they first revealed Unity. They done this little trailer where they were like up on top of the Notre Dame and you just like flip and switch down to the bottom. And it's like the next evolution of that, because it hasn't really progressed beyond that for me since Unity. So I'm loving it like that. And I do want to, I feel like we haven't spoken a lot about Yasuke, right? But I do actually like combat with Yasuke is a lot of fun. I would never pick him to traverse the world because it's brutal. It is brutal. Like watching him amble his way up a tree is too much like what it would be like if I was ambling up a tree. So
he genuinely needs his own. He needs like a fucking skateboard or something like that. He needs something that is like his movement benefit, because there is no reason.
Feudal Japan,
like, his
skateboard
horse
through the streets.
Take out the Animus.
His horse should be able to like.
It's historically accurate. It's important.
Also, this is how many Assassin's Creed
Feudal
games.
Japan is when the skateboard was invented.
This is how many open world games have been set in Japan recently. I forgot that the glider was in Rise of the Ronin and not this game, and there's been so many times I've been up on top of a big building being like, do I have like a Zelda glider in this? Because it feels like I should be able to glide right down into there. Yasuke should have something that, like, as I say, his horse maybe shouldn't be able to fly, but should be about 50 times as fast, because anytime I was forced to go, there's like very, very, very few character-specific missions, and they make sense in the context of the game. One of them was specifically right up in the top right-hand corner of the map, somewhere I hadn't been yet, and it was like, I have to be Yasuke to go here. And I was like, well, get a podcast on, get 5 podcasts on, because by the time I get there, like, I'll actually listen to all of these. But he's so unbelievably slow. But yeah,
I have to say,
where you can kick someone across the planet.
The combat,
and you know, the running through screen doors with him, just obliterate. I was actually quite, because of my aforementioned ineptitude at the combat in this game for some reason. I really enjoyed when Yasuke turned up, and suddenly whenever I got into a fight, I didn't just die immediately. I could just, hack my way through and like tank it. That was really fun. But he has to be strategically deployed You know, he's really good in certain combat situations, and I actually find him as a character very interesting.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that he shows up a lot. Like, even if you're playing as Naui, like, suddenly both of you will be there for that cutscene because it gives you the option to play as either of them. Like, I think that's a smart choice.
Is it just me as well, or again, I haven't played that much of most of the more recent Assassin's Creed games, but the tone appears to have changed quite substantially. Like the last time I was immersed in one of these games, I was sort of doing mad missions for Socrates and like a bunch of sort of playful stuff in ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was my, like, in terms of like the most requested Assassin's Creed setting, my Japan was ancient Greece. Like, I was an absolute sicko for ancient Greece. So up for it. And then in that game, it was very playful, but this has got a lot of, like, it's very serious. There's a lot of quite, you know, there was a bit where you're having to learn the whole tea ceremony. As now, and there's an awful lot of like quite serious, like political interplay between different houses and like figuring out, like, currying favor with different Nobunaga's different generals in order to get there's an awful lot of very, like, quite quiet, quite serious, quite lots of names, and it seemed very un-video gamey in some ways.
I think it has to do with the setting, particularly because, like, in those other games, it's like, well, why is Socrates like helping me you know, like, all right, we got Da Vinci and he's making these contraptions for me, and it was just like a fun thing. Whereas this is like, well, you're inserted into one of the most interesting geopolitical times in the history of the world, and like the backstabbing that is happening, the layers upon layers of like who's really in charge, who's pulling the strings. Like, they had to kind of invent that and insert that into those games, and they wanted to use like historical characters to complete that narrative, and like it feels very absurd. But this is probably, I mean, obviously none of this is real, but it is the most grounded in reality storyline. And Naue is a character that would have been, you know, there is an analog for Naue in reality, whereas there isn't one for Cassandra, there isn't one for Eivor. So that's, I agree with you. Like, I think that, like, that is part of the reason why the story feels so engaging, is because you're not ripped out of it in that way. Something I do want to add to that, and I'm curious how everyone else feels about it, and maybe it's a thing as well, because again, I'm probably the earliest out of everyone, but I'm surprised how much I actually think that unless you're playing the canon version where it picks the choices for you, I was surprised by the number of times I could make dialogue choices. And I was like, on some of them, I was like, what do I want to say here? And I'm actually found myself quite surprised as to how well they were written and like the different directions. And I hope that the story does something with that and it's not just flavor. But even if it is just flavor, I actually think it did bring another dimension. Like, this Naue that I'm choosing to portray is this intentional thing that I'm doing. So I'm very curious as to how people feel about that system, and does it squander it in like the rest of the game? I can see them squandering it pretty easily, but
it's largely, it's flavor in the sense that it's a lot of just different cutscene outcomes. Like, it won't there is a few instances where you can personally choose a character's fate. However, in grand video game tradition, that character goes, oh, well, I'm away to Australia, I'll never see you again. So it's like, it can't break the game that way. But I agree. I think they're well used and they're not overwhelmingly frequent. Yeah, I thought it was a nice flavor. I think the canon mode is interesting as a concept. Honestly, after our conversation earlier, there should be like a no Animus mode where it's like, just give me the historical shit. But yeah, that stuff isn't that's weird because that's quite an RPG-ish system, like dialogue options, and it's kind of at odds with a lot of the other stuff. They're kind of
I thought the way it was written was really impressive because so I played. What language did everyone play it in? Because obviously you can choose immersive mode where it's in Japanese
out in
and
English
Portuguese.
and then changed to Japanese.
I've been playing it immersive. I've been playing in Japanese. Yeah.
I played it in English.
Portuguese.
Whole thing.
How's the voice acting in English? Is it also good?
Very good. Yeah. Very. The person that plays Naue, I think, is fantastic.
So I was really properly impressed with the way that the Japanese is written. Like I speak basic. I did a degree in Japanese years ago, so that's kind of my level and stuff. I can't understand everything they're saying in like old like Edo dialect, pre-Edo dialect, but nonetheless, the way that things are written, like the option you'll be given in the dialogue might be, to confront somebody. But the way that now I will confront them is by being like, oh, it's clear that I have a lot to learn in this situation, which is like a very subtle way of pointing out that, the person isn't catering to them in the conversation. And the way that people phrase things, the way that things are done feels really good. I'm obviously not an expert in Japanese history by any means, but it feels really good. In the same way that Shogun did, it feels right. And not the kind. I was really worried for a while with this game because some of the pre-release stuff, like a few years back, it was a bit like, as the sakura falls from the tree, so you must flow across the winds of history. And I'm like, no, please don't make the whole thing an embarrassing like haiku in terms of tone. And instead, it feels really good. It feels less weeb than I thought it was going to feel.
Yeah.
And actually, like the way that the dialogue is in, I don't speak Portuguese, but I presume that's pretty good as well. Like it seems to be a lot of effort's gone into that, which I was surprised by.
Right,
Portuguese is really good. My wife is Portuguese, speaks Portuguese, and
okay.
I like I was playing. I started in immersive mode, so she was hearing all of that at the beginning.
Yeah,
and she was quite impressed. So I can't.
Thumbs up to whoever the linguists who sorted this out are at Ubisoft.
Well,
like, thank you, thumbs up from the people who care.
They usually employ about 3,500 people to make these games, so one or two of them will know their dialogue onions. To wrap us up, David,
who
give us
Portuguese on the team. All right,
Ubisoft Lisbon are super excited. David, wrap us up. Give us 2 sentences, your highlight and your kind of, I wouldn't say concern, but your middling low light.
The highlight is definitely, I think, the story overall, the story and the presentation. Like, I think the art direction, how cinematic the game is, and just how much of the story is improved. Because I agree, the writing's a hell of a lot better than I've felt in any of the previous Assassin's Creeds. So those are all, and the combat's a lot of fun. So those are all my top level like highlights. Low light or thing that's still shit is the progression system, and how it is still grindy. Ubisoft can't help themselves by putting in stuff that again makes the game longer, not better, and just kind of hampers it a lot. But overall, good outing. Good job, Ubisoft.
I think the polish on the game from presentation, attention to detail, they've always been really good at this, but it's ratcheted up to a level and we're not getting any weird bugs. I always found like audio things, like an assassination, like the audio just never lined up. All of that is gone and smoothed out, which is great. And I think that is, and when you're playing a game like this, you want it to feel really good. I think that's the most important thing a game can really do. And this game does that very well. And yeah, I would agree, just like nonsense RPG stuff, the Homestead, I haven't really touched, but I can already tell I'm not really going to go back to it. I do think that like this would be a stronger game if it was just, this is the linearest thing. We do have some side mission, honestly, like the original games. And I know that that's a drum that people have been beating for forever, but I think it's more apparent than ever. And I think that is the only way that this franchise is really going to make a name for itself that feels, like this is why you play an Assassin's Creed game. It's just not doing all that RPG stuff nearly as well as most other RPG games do. But yeah, overall though, like if you enjoy Assassin's Creed and you've been morbidly or mildly curious about this one, like I think most people that play it who like these games are going to have a very high opinion of this one.
Keza?
On the plus side, I think this very genuinely is one of the most beautiful video games I've ever played. As a piece of historical virtual tourism, it's top notch, so good. Everything that you would hope for from a historical fiction video game. On the minus side, it's still super finicky. There's still too many systems, and I still tragically remain absolutely terrible at it.
Aiden?
I think it's highlight and lowlight are kind of tied into each other in a way. Like I love exploring this world, like Kez was saying, it is gorgeous in all of the different weather effects and how dynamic the foliage feels and the way that it flows, and there's leaves going around. I've clearly played Ghost of Tsushima, except they've got a more dense map now, which I personally prefer. The thing that disappoints me about the map the most, though, is the lack of like emergent gameplay situations, because you think of something like Red Dead 2, you would come across some guy doing something, you're like, what are you doing there? And that's like potentially a little mystery, a little thing. I came across this woman once in the middle of a city, and she says, oh, my husband's abusive and I really need to leave, but I don't have the money, I don't know what to do. And you're like, maybe you could do this, and here's some money. And I thought maybe this is going to be a new line of missions. And then she just went, cheers for the money, bud, and told me where a chest was that had like some gear in it, and then went away. And that's like as deep as it gets with like people you come across, people that, a little cart that's broken down, cool, you help him, he'll tell you where something is. That really disappoints me, because like everything looks so good and it feels great to explore. But overall, though, I have to say, like, I've been really, really impressed with this. It feels like, from the PlayStation perspective, especially, like the environments and stuff are like first party level. It looks just insane, and everything, you feel that polish so much more here than you've ever felt in an Assassin's Creed game. And like Tom was saying as well, if you're a fan of the RPG games in particular, this is the best RPG one easily, and the best one they've had for a long time.
My low light, Yasuke too slow. My highlight, they finally got rid of this woke nonsense about how assassinating people isn't an insta kill. There's still some enemies where you'll need to upgrade your bar. Like, there's literally an upgrade to be like, now you can insta kill people with 3 bars of health. But as long as you do that, anyone you sneak up to, insta kill, and that is Assassin's Creed to me. You can shove your Animus up your arse. That's Assassin's Creed. I don't want to get behind someone, have the assassinate thing come up, and a little chunk comes off their health. It's like, sorry, there's no little chunk. I just stuck this 9-inch blade through your throat. Like, come on now. Let's be
fellas, is it woke to one-hit kill?
I mean, really quickly on that, because I really actually like what they've done there and how they've, like, for example, if you come across an enemy that is too powerful, right, for you to insta-kill, the animation is different. You're not jabbing them in the back. It's like they were able to get out of the way, but you slashed them a little bit, and so, like, they lost some blood. So many times, too, as well, like, if... in previous Assassin's Creed games, if they saw you as you were lunging to assassinate them, you would get away with it. In this one, their reactions are quick enough where they'll grab your arm and like prevent you from doing it, and then you're pushed into combat. And I thought all of that was like a really smart way to handle that and give you the insta-kill that you were looking for. But I agree. I love that woke shit. Or not woke. Well, I forget where we lost the path, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's somewhere around there. Anyway, speaking of, I'm going to go and write this review, which I'm sure will get a very normal reaction from everyone that reads it. Thank you to Keza, Tom, Aaron, and David. All their links will be below. Check out VGC, the Video Game Podcast, and patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle. I'm Jordan Middler. We'll see you next time.